What's up, everybody? Welcome on into the slate, and what a time to be alive. There's so much going on in the world of sports. We are obviously on the cusp of NBA game finals, game number 4, our NBA finals game number 4, which is coming up tomorrow. Tonight, we have game 3 of the Stanley Cup final. We'll talk plenty about that coming up in just a matter of moments, maybe even mix in a baseball or Canadian Open thought by the end of the show, because these two guys that are here with us, they can do everything between them. Individually, no, but between them, they can do it all. Gary and Thorne, Jeff Ulrich, I'm Adam Kaufman. Guys, it's good to see you. Moose, I think we have to begin hockey, though, because it is, of course, only a couple hours away. Like I said, game 3 in Sunrise between the Golden Knights and Florida Panthers. The Cinderella story Panthers, it might be coming to a crashing end, but we're not quite there yet. 2-0 lead by Vegas going into this one. Do we expect a dominating 3-0 advantage?
I think a lot of people expect it. I personally will ride with the Panthers once more here. Big picture, the Panthers look like maybe they're regressing back to the team they were in the regular season. We're up and down, but again, the first game in the series was really close. I think that you could argue in game 2, there were some really close chances for the Panthers where if they had gone in early, that game would have been a completely different story. And I just don't think that there's enough between these two teams to say that I'm confident that Vegas just comes in here and closes it out 4-0. Maybe they do get a win tonight, but I think if Vegas does win, they may even need extra time. That's kind of the feeling I've got. So I'm okay riding with the Panthers here. I understand that there's probably a lot of bets going in on the Golden Knights at plus 100 as the underdog, but this line for the Panthers, it's stuck at 120. It's stuck at minus 120 kind of the whole week here, and it feels like it's been a week in between games. And I think that's interesting. So I would ride with them here right now. I mean, you've got Bobrovsky in a bounce back spot, first game at home. They get the right back in. And I think that the added extra time, I talked about this before, but Florida was the team coming off like almost 2 weeks of rest. That rust is probably a little bit off now. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a little bit more disciplined team here.
So I think what is interesting is there are a lot of people, just if you're following the money, if you're following the percentage of bets, all of that, it's a lot of people that really just don't necessarily, Jeff, know how to feel, how to think, how to bet, because as you said, Vegas plus 100 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, looking at the VEASAN numbers, 60% of the bet is on the Golden Knights right now, whereas it's basically a 50-50 split in terms of percentage of handle. If you were to look at the goal line, minus 1.5, obviously for Florida, kind of 60-40 once again, percentage of bet on Vegas, but percentage of handle 50-50. So what ultimately is the deciding factor here for a lot of people?
Oh, I mean, I think that what you said is a deciding factor. I think there's a lot of people who just just a little bit skeptical or trying to guess what the Florida Panthers are going to do. And they just say, well, I can get better odds with the Golden Knights. Let's just go there. And I think that's probably why you're seeing a lot of people go there. But interestingly enough, I mean, it sounds like there's a little bit more of the handle on the Panthers. So at the very least, like I said, this line hasn't moved. And for me, I think that's interesting enough for me to kind of stay on the Panthers there. Bobrovsky, too, I give him enough credit that he's a veteran goalie. He's played extremely well in these kind of spots. He's used to bouncing back. I just think that you're going to see a concerted effort from the Panthers. So, yeah, I like them, before the series. I think that the layoff definitely did not help them. But I also think that the first 2 games have been closer than whatever the 12-4, whatever however many goals that Vegas has scored in the first 2 games really indicates. Because especially that first game, it was tied with, going well into the third. So I think Florida at home deserves a little respect. And that's the side I'm leaning on.
So I'm glad you brought that up in terms of the goal scoring in this one. 7 goals in game 1, 9 in game 2. The over-under for this one is 6 on the DK Sportsbook. About 70% of people believe in the over. I believe in the over. Which way would you go?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm fine staying off the total here, getting 6 instead of 5.5. If it was 5.5, I definitely lean towards the over. It's 6 goals. I don't really feel like I necessarily have to go there. I think that if Bobrovsky shows up, there's a real chance you get some kind of 4-1 game, potentially even 3-1. So that worries me enough to stay off the over. But I would suggest that, going against the public in these spots, the public's been pretty good with the over-unders in this series so far, but I would always lean against it. At 6, I would feel a little bit better about taking the under than the over personally, for the simple reason that if you get a bounce back performance from Sergei Bobrovsky, I think it's going to be really tough for Vegas to score. So, and certainly, Vegas has been fairly good at limiting shots as well. So I would lean towards the under here personally, but it's not really my favorite bet at all to touch the total.
Let me ask you a potentially stupid novice betting question that some people out there may be wondering after hearing that explanation right there. What is the difference between 5.5 and 6? And what I mean by that is if you would go over 5.5, but 6 is like, it's a bit much, I think I would just stay away. If there's 6, you're just going to push and get your money back anyway. So why not still ride the over there?
Typically you don't want to, that shouldn't be your rationale for, like betting an over under. Oh, like I can push. You want spots where it's clear, like you have a bigger edge to win. So, getting it straight at 6 generally, like the 6, it sounds great. Oh, it'll save you if you get to 6, but getting to the number that you want shouldn't be, the be all end all. If you're just playing for a tie, your bet generally isn't going to be, EV. So like really to hit the over here, you need to hit 7. That should be your idea. What is the projection of this potentially going over to 7? And for me, I think that, again, I think this has a better chance of staying under 6, going to 5 than 7. So that's kind of like a very layman's way of putting it. But the general idea is like that 6 total. I mean, generally not the best, unless you really think that, a game is like completely being undervalued here. Like it's clearly, like this game should be at 6.5. Then generally, a 6 is not really a game that I love attacking for an over. So, hey, it's, different people are going to have different opinions on this, but generally when it gets to that number, you have to be fairly confident in your over pick if you're going to go there.
So whether it's in Gary, and I promise we are going to get to you, not just leave you sitting silently there.
To be fair, I could have also told you that 6 was half a goal higher than 5.5.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't want
to let Jeff handle that one.
I don't want you sitting there feeling like Lindsey Buckingham in the "What Up with That" sketch, just nodding and smiling at us the entire time. Depending on which way you believe this game is going to play out, Jeff, as we get into player props or anytime goals or whatever it may be, who needs to step up, or who do you believe is going to step up that would be good bets on either side?
Yeah, for sure. For the Panthers side, I mean, Carter Verhaeghe, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk is the obvious answer, but Carter Verhaeghe is a player who's been really opportunistic, really solid for the Florida Panthers during the playoff run. Him stepping up would be a big thing, but I think that the player that the Panthers actually really need to do something is actually Alex Barkov. Alex Barkov, excuse me. He has been Barfoff a little bit the first 2 games, but Alex Barkov is a very, very high-end center. If he can make his mark here when they're in Florida, I really think like he is the kind of player who can really turn the tide in this series. He's a great 2-way player. If he can shut down Jack Eichel a bit, just that line, or just help out with getting matched up against the second line and start producing, I mean, he can take over series for a couple games. He can. So Alex Barkov is a player that the Panthers desperately need, I think, to really just show up. It could happen. It absolutely could. And I think that if the Panthers do turn this around, he's going to be pivotal. So a name to take there. I don't know if I necessarily, again, plus 175 for a goal. Maybe you look to him. I think if I was looking at Barkov, I would probably look to the points props rather than the pure goal scoring props. Like a multiple point game for him or something like that would be interesting. But, just in terms of generally who would I be looking at, Barkov is a guy they absolutely need to step up, in my opinion. And then obviously, Sergei Bobrovsky bouncing back. I think another player prop that I'd have some fairly solid interest in is a Bobrovsky over save prop. I'm not sure if we have one up on DK right now, though.
I can take a look as we're exploring that.
I could be wrong about that. Maybe we do, but no, I don't think we do.
Okay. And I was just looking too for multiple points for Barkov, because obviously
everyone's set at single points too, so I don't think you can get that.
Yeah, you're not getting any real value at minus 190 for him to go over. Obviously,
you might want to take Barkov for an assist. Actually, here's a Barkov over 1 assist minus 105. That's not bad at all. I think
Yeah.
that's fairly solid.
And what about, just before we move off of hockey? I know there's a lot we're going to get to here on this show, but just the overall outlook on the series in general, whether it's, obviously you could look at the Conn Smythe Trophy, you could look at just odds to win. I'm looking right here, Vegas minus 500 now, Florida plus 400. We've seen Florida do the whole comeback kids thing already here in this postseason. Came back from down 3-1 to beat Boston, for instance, all the way back in round one. Good bet, obviously, if you have faith. The question is, after they've had kind of their doors blown off in both the first two games, albeit on the road, whether it would be right to have that kind of faith in a comeback. Would you be more apt to just bet on a longer series?
Yeah, that's exactly what I would actually be. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. I think that there's legitimacy in saying, okay, we had the first two series, the first two games. Everyone's very high on Vegas, but again, the Panthers had a long layoff. It's a little bit of a drag between these two games for Vegas. Could the Panthers just all of a sudden switch this? I think they could. And I think playing for something like Panthers plus 1.5 games, Panthers even plus 2.5 games is at minus 115 right now. Like, I mean, again, we've got such big, long breaks here for hockey. That hockey in general too. It's more of a contact sport. These guys can, all of a sudden pick up steam. A lot of things can change in between. It's much like football. Like in the span of a week, a lot of things can change for a team. And I could just see the momentum in this series shifting back to Florida for a couple games, and just making this series go on a bit longer than I think people could even imagine right now. So I do like playing the Panthers on those lines. I think that's a really good number, to be honest, for plus 2.5 games. Even the plus 1.5 games, I think is viable.
Yeah, plus 180.
Yeah, so that is where I would be looking. Again, I'm not going to say it's a pretty big hill to climb for the Panthers, and Vegas has proven they lost a couple games to Dallas, and they got it right back. Did the same thing to Edmonton. So I don't want to bet against Vegas for the series, but I do kind of have interest in taking the Panthers here. I just think it's too early to write them off. And I'm willing to go down on the ship with them for one more night here before it's all said and done.
Gary, and let's switch gears here. Let's move on over to the NBA Finals, obviously, and I'm sure you were locked in watching that last night. That game, I don't know about you, that game went exactly as I expected it to in this sense. I thought Denver was going to win going away. I didn't hesitate to take the 2.5 points. And I thought that Jokic was going to have a big game, meaning I went over his points, rebounds, assist combo. What I never would have envisioned was a pair of 30-point triple-doubles, which we've never seen in an NBA game, period, by teammates, let alone in an NBA Finals game. So obviously, incredible performance out of Joker and Jamal Murray. The question is, though, can they do it again? Can they go back home up a commanding 3-1 back in Denver, or is Miami going to find the resilience and the three-point shooting and the play from role players to even this thing up?
I mean, that's the thing. You ask, can they do it again? They don't really have to. Denver's just clearly the better team. I think if you really kind of sit back and analyze just every quarter we've seen in this series so far, Denver pretty handily wins game one. They're dominating for the first 36 minutes of game two. And as we've seen the Heat do from time to time in the playoffs, they snuck up and beat a really good team and kind of took advantage of a team maybe taking the foot off the gas a little bit. And I liked what Michael Malone did in game three. They go into that fourth quarter. They've built up. I know Miami went on a little 5-0 run to close out the third quarter to make what was a 19-point deficit into a 14-point deficit, which feels a little bit more surmountable. But, they left Jokic in. They left Murray in. Usually that's where Jokic would sit at the start of the fourth quarter. And we saw Jimmy Butler go to the bench, even though Miami was down 14 points. And it just seems like I don't want to say overcorrected because they were right, but just really shored up that issue and said, we're not letting Miami sneak back into this game again. We've learned from our mistake here, I think was the point. And again, they're just better. It's so hard to analyze this series because I don't really know where there's any value in the market anymore, because every line suggests the Nuggets are better, and I really have a hard time disagreeing with that sort of analysis. I think we spent so much time talking about how good a home team Denver was, justifiably so. I think one thing that's sort of been overlooked in this series, especially after the Nuggets dropped their first game in Denver in these playoffs in game 2, Miami's not a good home team. They've been okay in the playoffs, but throughout the regular season by net rating, Miami had the worst home net rating of any playoff team in basketball. I mean, they're resilient. Jimmy Butler can obviously go off on any given night, but I think he's even sort of said he hasn't been quite the same guy since that injury he sustained in the second round of the playoffs. I just don't know what Miami can do. I think the element of surprise, if you can surprise someone in the NBA Finals, is sort of gone. My favorite bet in this series before game 1 was Nuggets exact series score 4-1. I know a lot of people felt the same way. And I think it's still setting up to pretty much be that. It was plus 220 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think there's much value in game. I think you can just keep betting the Nuggets game to game. I'm not. What is the spread right now? Is it 4?
It's
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
Still fine. I'd still take the Nuggets minus 3.5. I have no.
Are you surprised, Gary, by that it's only 3.5?
I think you have to at a certain point, a modicum of respect you have to give the home team, but at the same time,
still giving the home team respect if it was 5. I mean, they blew them out yesterday, at least in the second half.
Again, I would agree. I thought it was going to be more 4.5. 5 would have been fine as well. Again, we saw this play out with the Heat against the Celtics, where, in Miami for game 3, despite already winning 2 games, they were barely favored against the Celtics. The only time we really saw the Heat as a commanding favorite in that series against the Celtics was in game 4, when we all had just written the Celtics off for dead. And that was more about the Celtics than it was about the Heat.
And by commanding favorite, it was 1.5.
Yeah, that's true.
What, in game 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But they hadn't been a favorite yet.
No, I know. I just mean that's the little respect
books,
people give Miami.
I think the thing we have to remember with the books is there's so much more analytical element here than human element. In the analytical element, the entire playoffs has not favored the Heat. So It's not going to start now, but you start looking at futures markets and stuff, there's no value betting who's going to win series MVP. I guess the case to be made, I guess, would be if you think the Heat are going to win, there's still value in Heat players, but they're not. And Jokic is going to win MVP. I know Jamal Murray just dropped a 30-point triple-double, as you mentioned, Koff, but, Jokic is winning MVP if they win this series. So
without a doubt,
I don't really know where to go here. I, again, would just say minus 3.5 in game 4. I'm perfectly fine with that, but the Nuggets are going to win this series. They're the better team.
So it's not forgive this term in the world of gambling, right? Because it is not really something that should be used, but it's not supposed to be this easy. And what I mean by that is I had Denver in 5 coming in. I had Denver minus 1.5. I had Denver minus 2.5. We're not supposed to all read this well. And obviously,
I guess I would counter that by saying, how much money did you lose in the Celtics series?
I was just going to say that.
So, the market corrects itself in funny ways, right?
No, for sure. From a fan perspective, would love Boston to still be playing as a better. Thrilled they're done because I was losing on them routinely. But it just seems like this series, where you've got such a deep, well-balanced, superstar-led, number 1 seed against an 8 seed where its role players, unlike in the conference finals, generally have not shown up, save for Gabe Vincent. And obviously Tyler Hero, who knows if he's going to come back in the series, not playing in game 4.
Put that out there. Kyle Lowry's been very good in this series. Beside the point, just have to stand up for my boy.
Fair. Yeah, just all hail Toronto. I guess if
Kyle Lowry's a former mayor of Toronto, so
I guess if we're looking for value, to circle back to your point there, Garion, you kind of just have to dig into the sports book and get creative. And what I mean by that is I'm looking at, Denver minus 1 in the first half is minus 110. You got to do things like that. Is Denver going to be the halftime leader? Yes. Cool. Win some money. Obviously covering the spread.
I mean, do you have to get creative? Like, just take the minus 155.
Just 3.5. Like that's the thing.
Or 3.5, yeah, or whatever you're fancy. I just feel
you
like
could look
at
like alternate spreads if you want.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine.
Sure.
Like going down and taking him minus 5.5, minus 6, if you can get like plus 140, plus 160 on that.
Yeah.
And sure, like the prop market is going to be interesting. I do think there's something to be said about just how aggressive Michael Malone has been again with these rotations and with keeping Jokic and Jamal Murray on the court. Like,
yeah, they both played like 45 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, Jokic. Yeah. I mean, last game, Jokic's props just going over on everything was just you could just smash it. So I mean, they've obviously adjusted for this game, but I don't know. I mean, like there's still probably, like Garion said, because there's short rotation. There's probably maybe look at a couple other players as well that maybe haven't adjusted as much. Maybe something.
And I think Nuggets rebounding props, honestly, like find guys who play a ton of minutes for the Nuggets, because the Heat sort of have this deathly combination in terms of opponent rebounds where, one, the Heat are massively undersized. I mean, they're putting out rotations where you've got Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry out there simultaneously. And those guys are decent positional rebounders, but between them and Bam also being undersized as a center, Jimmy being undersized as a 4, they're just not in a great rebounding position.
Well, here you go, Gary, because this, I don't know if they just added this, but alternate rebounds now on DraftKings Sportsbook. So you can get Aaron Gordon 10 plus 400. I don't know.
Not like, because again, you've got a situation.
Jamal Murray 7 plus. Like, I mean, yeah.
They're so small, and on top of that, the Heat are missing so many shots. Like, the Heat are just not a shot-making team. There's going to be rebounds to be had, specifically defensive rebounds, which are the easiest rebounds to get. So, the Aaron Gordon thing is unfortunate. I think Gordon is one of those like guys, not to like the Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams extent, but Gordon's doing a lot of dirty work boxing guys out so Jokic can pick up some rebounds. Like,
right. Yeah.
Jokic is kind of a vacuum for these things. And Murray has proven to be a really, really aggressive rebounder in this series. But again, he's got such a size advantage on any guard that the Heat are throwing at him. But
his almost look like, I mean, his look, it's only plus 155, but 7 plus actually seems extremely doable. Like that. Yeah.
You're going to play 45 minutes. Like, maybe rebounding props might be the way to go there.
2 combos that I want to ask you about. You talk about market correction. Was there an overcorrection on Jokic PRA, points, rebounds, assists? Because the number went from 51.5, which obviously he obliterated yesterday, to 54.5, which certainly doable, but big number. It's hard to want to take the over on that.
I mean, if we go game to game here, obviously had the massive triple-double in game 3. Assists were down in game 2, but he scored 40 points. Look, I think it's a big number, and I'm not denying that. It's not my favorite bet on the board. But if you want to know if I had to bet this, would I take the over? I would, because I think the only situation where this goes south, and it's a scenario that could play out, because again, I just think the Nuggets are that much better than the Heat. But at the same time, this is a game that does have a 3.5 point spread. It's in Miami.
Up 20 in the fourth quarter, sit him down.
Yeah, like maybe this just gets so ridiculously lopsided. But again, playing that out, up 14 points, Jokic just played the entire third quarter. I actually sat down for the final 13 seconds of the third quarter last night. But the Nuggets are up 14 points. And Jokic is right back out there and basically plays the entire fourth again. So I don't even know how many points the Heat would have to be trailing by for Michael Malone in the NBA Finals to take his foot off the gas. So that's not even a scenario I really see playing itself out. I think you're locking yourself into 42 minutes plus of Jokic. And at that point, this is someone who is so efficient in terms of racking up counting statistics that it's still, I'm not going to say it feels too low, because it's not low. It's a ridiculous prop total. But I would lean to the over.
How about, because I made this bet, so what's done is done, but I'm curious what you think of it, because it's a little bit of tempting fate. It's certainly, it's by no means a lock. It hasn't hit in the last 2 games, but it just feels like it's too low to stay away from, and that is this. Michael Porter Jr., I know. Michael Porter Jr., points, rebounds, over 16.5.
He's been terrible.
So here's the thing that's interesting. So what's that paying, out of curiosity?
Minus 120.
What's his 3-pointers prop?
Happy to find that for you. Player
His
3.
point prop is 10.5.
His 3-pointers prop over 1.5 is minus 175.
Okay. So yeah, you're probably better taking the points and rebounding prop combination, because basically
He doesn't rebound well.
I'm just saying, if you're asking if Michael Porter Jr. is going to hit the over on this prop, the question is Michael Porter Jr. going to hit his open corner 3-pointers? So maybe you do like a 3-pointer ladder if you want to do that. But you are on the correct MPJ prop.
It does feel, I mean, this is just the whole gamble. This is the gambling cliche, but Michael Porter Jr. is due for a game here. Like he's been pretty cold. So the whole, let's just play, it's just due. Yeah, that's good. That's great.
And again, I mean, Jamal Murray's also been fantastic at creating open shot. Like when Jamal Murray playing at this level is still just your second best creator on offense, you're playing within a system that is going to get you so many wide open 3-pointers. So, and also we saw the Heat. I cannot remember a team being, I know we've seen some interesting stuff the last couple of years in the finals. Famously, Nick Nurse throws out the box and 1 against Steph Curry, but God, they were double teaming Jamal Murray above the break. Like not even like, oh, he might be in the corner. Above the break. Like, how are you double teaming Jamal Murray when Nikola Jokic is like at a certain point just run out of players if you're double teaming both those guys constantly? But the Heat have been super aggressive in some of these things. So you would think at some point, it was Bruce Brown in game 1. Why couldn't it be Michael Porter Jr.? One of these secondary players is just going to get so many open shots.
It was Christian Braun in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, Christian Braun was fantastic. I think youngest player to ever score.
Does he have any props, by the way?
Less than 20 minutes?
He's not even there.
Do they have alternate 3-point props on DK?
Sometimes they do. Maybe a little bit closer to tip. I know we're pretty far out.
I like that.
They're there. Yeah, all threes.
Can I be honest, though? Much like the Stanley Cup, until this morning, I completely forgot this game was Friday. I just assumed it was like Sunday. This series is
I mean, the breaks have been outrageous. I mean,
it's weeks between games. It just feels like, especially with the. Anyways, yeah. That's
so so that we still have some time for a little bit of baseball and a golf thought as well. I don't think I asked you this, Moose, about the Stanley Cup, and Gary, and I definitely have not asked you this about NBA Finals. Just a favorite bet for each game from each of you.
I mean, I would just play Florida here. Money line. I'm just trying to think if there's another angle to it, but I mean, unless the only other prop I could think of was Bobrovsky over that I really truly am pretty confident is Bobrovsky over his save prop, but I don't even think we have a save prop, probably because he was just confirmed like today. So maybe closer to puck drop, although we're like an hour away. So I'm just going to say Panthers money line tonight.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty basic too. I just think you take the Nuggets minus 3.5. I wouldn't be shocked to see it get up to at least 4 by the time that game tips off, because again, it's just been a pretty one-sided series aside from one fourth quarter run.
Jeff, I just looked 28.5. It's up there.
Yeah, I like the over. Yeah.
Okay.
Florida's still going to allow a lot of shots, but Bobrovsky has been pretty solid. And if they just keep the puck to the outside, should be fine.
Gary, we've had some afternoon baseball going on. There's still a couple of games going on right now, along with postponements today also. You had the Orioles with a big comeback over Milwaukee. The Rays were pretty much in control the whole time against the Twins. Dodgers just eviscerated the Reds. The division crown chasing Reds with the riding the back of Ellie De La Cruz. What's a play for you for tonight?
That was a bomb.
Yeah, Ellie De La Cruz is fun, man. So I think my favorite play tonight, and I guess you could use this as a parlay piece if you want, sort of like the simplified version of this, but I'm just fading the Mets. So it's hard to do that on the money line because the Braves at home with their ace on the mound in Spencer Strider are minus 190. I don't mind the Astros. I think they're minus 110 tonight on the road in Toronto. So if you want to like parlay those and get a nice little, plus 213, plus 220, whatever that's going to pay out, that's fine. But if you just want one bet for that Mets Braves game, I think Strider to record a win is plus 105. The Braves are 10-2 in Strider's 12 starts this season. He's won 6 of those games. Obviously, there's some other stuff, some chicanery in the late innings that goes into a pitcher actually recording a win. So there is some added danger here if you're going this route. But It's a really nice number. Strider's obviously been incredible. He strikes out 40% of the batters he has faced. He's got a 2.60 expected ERA this season. The thing I really like about this spot, though, not only have the Mets lost 5 straight games, not only did Pete Alonso get hit in the wrist by a 97-mile-an-hour fastball yesterday, and he's not in the lineup today, the Mets can't beat good teams. The Mets are 6-18 their last 24 games against teams above 500. The Braves, one of the best teams in baseball. I just think the Mets are down real bad right now. Vibes are off, and I think the Braves just sweep them. So I'm going to take Strider plus 105 to record a win.
Very quickly, too, on Strider. I know it's a big number, 8.5, but do you like his over K prop, or does the number just get so high you stay away?
I think Strider's one of those guys where matchup doesn't even matter. Just always take the over with Spencer Strider. Again, he strikes out 2/5 of the guys he faces.
All right, and Jeff, we got round 1 completely in the books for the Canadian Open, the RBC Canadian Open. Aaron Rye is part of a, 5 guys tied for first at 5 under. I've got Rye in multiple lineups, so I'm feeling good in this moment. What'd you think of day 1? What are your expectations for the next round?
Yeah, no, course is playing pretty good. It's keeping it pretty tight. I think that it's tough to say if you're going to see a little bit lower scoring. It wouldn't shock me if you saw a little bit lower scoring as it went on. The course softened up, but certainly some players to keep an eye on. One player I really like, if you're looking to live bet right now, Mark Hubbard. I was a little worried Hubbard might just be running out of gas, but because he's played, I think this is like fifth tournament in 6 weeks, but he has been playing extremely well. He's been in the mix before, and he started well. That is a guy I'd be looking to in the live odds. I added him today. And then, just in general, players who look like they're playing well. Doug Gim is a little bit all over the place, but he's playing well. A guy I had for a top 20 bet this week. Corey Connors out there. I'm not going to fade him or anything, but, Canadians final round, you may want to think about that. Some of these other guys up at the top, just going through the list here, Justin Rose didn't finish off his round great today. I don't know. It's extremely tight, but again, Mark Hubbard would be a guy I'm just going to throw out there as a live bet for now. And we'll see how this round finishes up, but that's the name I'd really be marking right now. And
Moose here is too polite to correct me. It's the Canadian in him, so I will correct myself. The round is not completely over. There's still not over out there on the course, including Kim, who is also, he's part of that 5-way tie for first, but has 2 holes left. So he could be a solo leader by the end of the day. We will see. But right now, playing under so far. It's pretty interesting. All right. Full slate of Madden Sims on the way tonight. You have got coming up in just a few minutes, the dinner time sim, 6 p.m., the virtual Niners against the virtual Eagles coming up at 8, which is prime time, of course. Buccaneers and Broncos, and Madden After Dark, if you will. It's the Saints and Raiders. So thanks very much to all those who are part of this show. Eamon, our producer, Cody, our technical director, these 2 gentlemen who are all knowing.